moment, Michael?
I'm in Sydney.
Back at home?
Yeah, home office, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I'm going to share with you the link. Oops. Okay. Where's the chat? I've just shared with you the link for the live YouTube in case you want it to watch later or to share it with any of your pages. So we're streaming live to YouTube at the moment.
Okay.
Close that. Cool. We'll start in 1 minute. Just give people a second to log on. Okay. All right. Close that. All right. Well, we might get started if that's okay with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Amazing. All right. So hi, everyone watching. My name is Yolanda. I am the community coordinator for a group called Divers for Climate. Divers for Climate is a group led by divers for divers. And our goal is to make climate conversations more normal in the diving and marine space. Essentially, we want to talk about climate change and what we can do about it a lot more when it comes to protecting the ocean. And so today I have joining me the award-winning photographer, diving extraordinaire, Michael Orr. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm very excited to chat with you. So Michael has had probably a dive and photography career that I think most of us would be pretty jealous of. I know I am. And I'm sure you have lots of experiences to share with us and lots of perspectives on this, what's happening in our oceans at the moment. And so, yeah, before we get into it, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land I'm standing on today, and that is the Turrbal and Yugara traditional owners. I would like to recognize that this land always has been and always will belong to them. And so with that, we'll get into it, I guess. So Michael, you are a underwater photographer, expedition leader, you're a writer, you're a founder of many things, Ocean Geographic, Ocean Environment, Asian Geographic. And I think what we want to chat about today is that things like dive travel and underwater photography and kind of connecting with this global dive community are things that all of us divers and a lot of us in this group are really passionate about and things we love doing. It's things we want to know more about, especially if we can work in those areas. That's pretty amazing. And so I think it's really interesting to talk about how those things can help us answer these big questions facing our oceans today, like global warming. So before we get into some of the questions we have, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit and what it is you're up to these days?
Okay. Well, I've been diving since 1981. Started off as a holiday diver. In other words, I still had my previous profession in my previous commercial job. So I was diving on weekends or during holidays once or twice a year. So when I quit my previous job, or quit my commercial life, for lack of a better word, in 1992, I went on a holiday and decide to wake up to what am I going to do next. Mm-hmm. Then I happened to be very lucky to be able to stay in Manado, which is right at the doorstep of Bunaken Marine Park. This place is in Indonesia. For those of you who do not know, is on North Sulawesi, and at the time in early 90s, it's one of the very few national or marine park in that part of Indonesia. And then I decided to stay there for 8 months. So I met a very generous owner of a resort that invited me and allowed me to stay there to work on my photography. And then it became a book project at that time. And then the rest is history.
Amazing. What a nice place to start your journey. Yeah. So you've since then you would have
at the time we are still shooting on film. So when I stay there for 8 months, it also means that I have to travel back 3 times, each time bringing back 300 to 500 rolls of film to process, and you only can see your pictures, how whether you have any success. Every time you come back, and then you go back and shoot again with another 500 rolls of film or so, and then you come back. So I did that 3 times within the 8 months.
And that's shooting fish as well. That doesn't sound easy.
No, you wouldn't know whether there's a lot of trial and error, and you won't know whether you have the shots, and because there's no way to check until you come back, and you can't even process the film in that part of the world at that time. Later on, in the mid 90s, then you start to have processing of E6 film on boats and resort. But in the early 90s, there's no such thing. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's crazy. I can't even imagine. I can't even shoot pictures with a GoPro.
That's easy.
Have you been back to that place in Indonesia since you started?
Yes, I've been back there. In fact, in the 90s, I go back there every year, once or twice a year. And since the release of my book of the Marine Park in late 1993, 94, the place sort of, flourished. And from the time when I was there used to be two and a half resorts. And by the mid 90s, there was probably 15. And by the late 90s and 2000, there was like 20 odd resort around operating there. And it sort of caused a huge impact to the marine environment as a result of mass tourism going into the marine parks. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's something I wanted to ask you about next, because you've traveled all these amazing dive sites a lot in the last 30 years. And the last 30 years is where a lot of our human impact has really started to become visible on our ocean. So how is it different now diving now in some of these places than it was diving 20, 30 years ago?
Well, going back in time to the 80s, the difference is the ocean is in many places a lot different than then. Of course, there's a lot more fish, richer in terms of quality of the environment, of course, more pristine in that sense. Yeah. And not necessarily just because of divers, also because of climate change. There are a lot of places have deteriorated or destroyed. Mm-hmm. But with some care, some places with some care and some management has in fact become better. You went through a downward stage, spiral downward stage, and then you got better, all because of good management, and also maybe because of diving activities. So divers actually serve as like a ranger to deter fishermen and deter management, deter polluters. So mm-hmm. Every one of us has a place, in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely have more than one
better,
role to play.
Worse. So yeah, there are winners and there's losers.
In terms of the impacts that you've seen, you said some places damaged by climate change. Is there any place that stands out to you that you've seen, whether it's a dive site, or I know you've been to Antarctica, for example? Is there a place that really sticks in your mind as this is not going well?
There are places, for example, in part of Indonesia, in Komodo, even in the Maldives, even on as close as Great Barrier Reef, and their reef being destroyed from pollution become dead zone, and some reef reach what they call terminal phase that they will not recover. Because there's no platform for the reef to recover. But there's some reef that has recovered. Many actually have recovered, and some that just will not recover. And so we try to go back to these places and monitor through the years in the Maldives. And I mean, the reef are resilient. If we've given time, they will recover. But the problem we have now is because the warming sessions in the water, sea surface, sea temperature become warmer and warmer, and these occurrence of bleaching events become more frequent. There's not a chance for the reef to recover, and that is becoming an issue.
Yeah, it's too much, too often
That's
at
exactly.
the moment. Yeah. So with your travel experiences, is it always taking photos, or I know you've done some expedition trips. Could you tell us a little more about what they're about?
I enjoyed leading expeditions. I mean, my expedition that I lead ranged from a number as small as 5 people and up to 75.
Okay,
Those
that's a lot.
75 people are hard work, and I only can do those big expedition because a lot of management, a lot of organizations involved, and I'll probably do that once every 3 or 5 years, once of those. And I like those expeditions because you reach out to a lot of people, and some are divers, some are non-divers, and at the end of those expeditions, they go away as ambassador of the destination that we've been to, and they can talk about it and keep the conversation going. Whereas the smaller expeditions, like which is not normally is between 8 to 16 people, is a lot more personal. And those are the trips whereby people can come on board with me to learn about photography techniques, natural history of those animals that you interact with. For example, one of my favorite is with the orcas in the fjords of Norway. We do
Oh,
that every since 2013, and we'll be in a small group of 8 to 10 people when I can put them in the water safely with orcas and during the feeding sessions in November, and
that must
interact
be
with the
amazing.
orcas and also interact with the humpback whale at the same time. And those is magical moments because you can actually be with the animal in the habitats with very, very, is very uninvasive. They're there doing the things we're there just as there to observe and watch. And those are the expeditions I enjoy very much because it's a very small group of 8 to 12 people. Then, of course, there are also photography trip whereby it's actually a workshop per se that I organized, photography workshop. Those are very intense sessions whereby it's a week, and then we wake up every morning at 6:30, 7, and get a workshop going, and then diving, shooting, come back. In the evening, we have one-to-one session with each of the participants to improve the techniques, and then next morning they go and shoot again. That is usually a 5 to 6 day sessions. So you need a holiday after those after those workshops. So they varies. I only can afford to do it about whether it's big or small, about maybe 3 or 4 trips a year. Because the rest of the time I have to do my own shoot. For example, I embark on a book project which I have to go back to the Maldives this year already twice, and twice I'm going back again. Hopefully September to finish a book project. So those are trips I have to be on my own without anybody, or at least, or maybe with an assistant with me. That's it. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. I'm so jealous.
And
There's so many.
anybody can do it. You just have to put your mind and get yourself organized and get yourself sponsored, get your funding to do it. Anybody can do it.
Well, we'll get some tips from you at the end of this. There's a few things you mentioned just then when you were talking about your expeditions that I'd like to talk about. And like one of them was you said you help people get in the water and with these animals and appreciate them in their natural environment. And I think there's a lot of discussion at the moment, especially with the dive community, that really being in these environments in a natural way is a good way to help us connect with the water and maybe help us want to protect it. What do you think is the role of like those experiences and photography in that way to get people to help care a bit more about the threats facing the ocean?
Well, there's nothing quite like being being in the environment with, especially in the oceans. I always compare that with a walk in the forest or in a jungle. If you take a walk in the jungle, and you may see the birds, you may hear the birds, you might hear the monkeys, but you have very few chance of actually seeing them unless you have a lot of time, and it takes time to merge into the environment.
Mhm.
But as divers, each time you jump into the water, you jump into the ocean, automatically become part of the environment. Maybe not for the first 30 seconds of the first minute. After a while, the animals realize that you're there. You just get in there and just take
Yeah.
a few minutes and watch, and then you get merged into the environment very, very quickly. And you find that fish will actually swim around you and go about doing their own things. You don't have the kind of luxury, the kind of feeling if you're in a forest. So
Yeah.
it's not quite like it being in there to feel and to have a silent conversation with all these animals. So in a way, we are very fortunate to be able to do that even for an hour. So I think by that, we actually come to understand that even a gobies, a damselfish, they interact. They have eyes. They can have senses. They see. They know you're there. And if you're doing something wrong, they'll bite you. They're fierce, ferocious damselfish. They let you know they don't like you're putting the hand in where you shouldn't be putting a hand. So and by that interaction, you get to know them, and by that you're able to speak for them, because this animal that doesn't have a voice, so you become the voice when you come back on land. You speak for them. So yes, I think it's essential that we get into the ocean often and learn more about that environment. We are actually part of the environment anyway. Everybody tells that 80% of us is water, of the ocean. So our tears of sea water. So I think it's quite a natural thing to do to go back to the sea often.
Yeah, I love what you said, that when we're in there, we're having a silent conversation with the animals. I love
Yeah,
that idea.
I talk to my fish. I talk to the whales. I talk to orcas. They come closer. I just want to take a picture.
You're the marine whisperer. So for something like climate change, which is something that we Divers for Climate want to talk about more, because climate change is quite a scary topic for a lot of people. It sounds complex, it sounds political, like it's everyone's least favorite environmental problem, if that's what it feels like. So do you think there's a role for, connecting with nature, being underwater, to engage people more with, specifically with climate change, like with climate action?
um, I guess we go and say opal reefs on a Great Barrier Reef, or Steve Ballmer on the Great Barrier Reef, for example. Those are famous signature sites on the Great Barrier Reef. And then you come back next year and find that it's all gone, it's all damaged. And then you feel that you can actually see climate change in motion, and you can see it for real life. If you sit here, I say in Sydney here, and then look at the trees and the birds out there, climate change, what is that? If the trees are still green, the sky is still blue, it's not so real, is it? It's hard to react to that. So divers, you have the chance to go out there to see the environment and make comparison and come back and tell a story that is indeed real. It's happening. It's not in the future. The climate crisis is now, and it's happening.
Yeah.
And then as divers, I think we are the closest ambassador to that natural environment. And you have to talk about it, and not just talk about it. You have to walk the talk as well. What you can do as a diver to inspire change. For example, climate change. What causes greenhouse gas emissions? How to reduce that? Be it the way you travel, be it the car you drive, be it the kind of food you choose to eat. Like aquaculture contribute a huge amount of methane and gases up there. So you have to learn to reduce. Not ask you to stop, but you can reduce your red meat consumptions. You can reduce your plastic usage. You can travel, make more sensible travel, or combine the travel. Instead of traveling 10 times, how can you just do it twice and go to and achieve the same kind of result. So these are the things you think about, that you can do, and by that you become a testimonial to the environment, and you actually are walking ambassador of the environment. So it's not just talk about it; it's what you do what you do as well.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll talk more about what exactly we can do at the end when we wrap it up. But I definitely we're definitely a lot closer to the issue than people who don't get to go underwater, because like you said, the sky's still blue, the world's still turning for a lot of us, especially in countries like Australia. It's very hard to imagine climate change is happening, and then you get underwater, whether it's the Great Barrier Reef or whether it's a kelp forest in South Africa, and you see these things, it becomes all of a sudden, oh, something's not right here. But so you're speaking a lot about divers becoming ambassadors for the ocean and taking action on climate change. You've met people all around the world in the dive industry, photographers, scientists, professionals. I think you know everyone. So how how do people, what's their response of the kind of global dive community when it comes to taking climate action or acting on reducing emissions and all that? What is the response like generally?
I think we have become, generally, most divers are aware of the problems. They are aware that climate change is real. They are aware of the problems, rising sea level, at the same time of coral bleachings, and also sometimes it affects the food source as well, especially for seabirds and marine life.
Yeah.
But I would say a majority will know about it, but lacking actions to able to do something about it. Because at the moment, when especially the average divers, they go about 1 or 2 trips a year, and it's necessary for them to walk the talk, as I've just mentioned just now, and that help to inspire the peers, the families, the friends. It's hard. I know it's hard because sometimes you feel that you're the odd one out, but I think we should be more brave and be proud of our belief, and be proud that we can do something about it. Each one of us, we can't do everything, but each one of us can do a little bit. And that little bit, the little drop of ocean that you do, will become the ocean. So each one of us can do a little bit for sure.
Yeah. Have you ever had trouble trying to convince someone to take any of these actions?
I don't take no for an answer.
You're very good. Yeah, but can you give us some advice? How do you not?
No, I tell you straight away. In fact, one thing that I would do is that, for example, in all my trip that I organize, all right, we don't surf, there's no fish in my expeditions. And if it's a 10-day trip, I may let the kitchen serve a steak once.
Yeah.
Come or don't come, it's up to you. This is known before you come, that you're not going to get this on our trip. So this, and of course we try to minimize single-use plastic as well. We encourage the people we support. We can make educated choice who we support, where we go, the resort we go to, the boat we go on. Right? I always go on that first myself and give and consult for them and say, this is the thing you can do better. Even the detergent they use in the kitchen, and even palm oil, for example, we go into the little detail and tell them, you have to walk the talk, because after all, the operator, the resort, the boat, they make money from the ocean. They bring the guests to the ocean. They should look after that. So you have to help them. You have to educate them, and as divers, spending your money where you go, you have the right to tell them this I think is not acceptable, or you can do better. So we can make educated choices. We can make the choice with who we spend our money with.
Yeah, until it becomes completely normal for everyone to be doing these things.
Exactly. So it's normal. If we even people that don't, even my family may not agree with me that why do we not allow people to eat fish or steaks, but So too bad. You come, don't come, doesn't matter. Go somewhere else.
I'm going to say that
It's a bit of sacrifice you make for 10 days and spending time with us, right? You can make the sacrifice. And once you do that, when you go home, they can sort of do that at the same time, you can make choice.
Yeah, it's like a trial period. They go with you, see some orcas, you trick them a little bit, and they come back and they're like, oh, that's not so bad. I can do that at home.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I love that. Because I think definitely that what you said before, you don't want to be the one that stands out. Like you don't want to be the one that's always talking about the environment, and it doesn't seem to be what everyone else is doing. But I think if slowly, if boats start doing what your boats are doing, if people like well-known divers and everyone starts doing these little things, eventually it won't be a scary thing anymore. It'll be just like the things that we do. Like most people recycle at home now. It'll be like, let's be like recycling. Like this is
Just
just
be brave and talk about it, and then encourage the people around you to do the same. It's not rocket science. It's something you should be proud of what you believe in.
Mm-hmm. You said before when you do your bigger expeditions with like 70 people or so, and then they go back and talk about it. Do you hear back from them after they have finished the expedition? Like, do they go around and spread your message? I'm sorry, my question's not very clear. So like one of the things we do at Divers for Climate is we want to use the dive network and talk to people and hope that they go and talk to other people and kind of spread the message that way. Do you find that the people who come on your expeditions, when they leave, they take the message with them and spread it on?
Yes, they do. They do. So when we do big expedition like this, it's not just me. In fact, I collaborate with some of the scientists, and at the same time legends, and I've been in this business for a long time. And so, for example, Sylvia she's on most of our big expeditions,
Mm-hmm.
and this helped to inspire them to take home a message and carry on the message when they go home, and they always come back for more. So all the big expeditions usually get sign up quite quickly because they come back and want to take more away from us. So yes, so what is said is about a lot of divers out there. I maybe they're afraid, maybe they're not comfortable to engage in such a conversation about climate. And it's a nice day, that's all they go. But then the number of hotter days we get, I live in Sydney, and the conversation, for example, in the last many years, the number of days that is over 40 degrees Celsius increases every year. 10 years ago, we have got maybe 5 days of over 40 degrees Celsius. And then the last couple of years, we have maybe 15, 20 days of over 40 degrees Celsius. And what does that mean? These are the conversations we can engage on, So I think divers should learn to be more comfortable to engage in such conversation with the friends, with the peers. That is something is changed right now. And we have indeed in the crisis mode, The winter get colder, the summer get warmer.
Yeah, well, Sydney just had its coldest day in like 100 years yesterday, didn't it?
Exactly. You have to question what's happening here.
Yeah, I heard about that and I was like, why am I home? This is too cold for me. Yeah, no, I definitely think if divers could be the ambassadors, could stand up and say, something's wrong, something's really wrong. If we all did it together, then that could be really impactful, and stop people from being so scared of these things.
Yeah.
I wanted to move on to talk about photography because that is a super popular subject amongst divers and something you're very familiar with. Everyone, like I know a lot of kind of just starting up underwater photographers. Everyone's if they don't know anything about it, they're always interested in learning more, I find. Um, so you said before how you got into photography. In your kind of photography journey, do you have any, like, have you photographed any sad impacts in the marine environment? Because I'd love to talk to you about whether a lot of the photography around climate change and stuff is quite sad. And I wanted to see what your thoughts were on communicating really sad images about the ocean versus communicating really beautiful ones and really like hope inspiring ones. And I wanted to get your take on that.
I don't have a picture to show you right now, but I can show you later. Can you imagine a polar bear that is so hot that you have to put his face on a small chunk of remaining ice to cool down? Can you imagine a picture of that? That you put a polar bear put his face or her face on a piece of ice, and or a picture of a polar bear on the beach with just skin and bones, or a picture of a shark still struggling to live with all his fins removed. Those are haunting pictures, that you stick in your mind when you photograph that. So, but I think as photographer, as a documentary photographer, as a photojournalist, sometimes we are confronted with such scene, and that's the time where you have to put aside your emotions and get on with your job. You got to do your job, because those pictures tell the stories, and in fact, it's very powerful pictures. Pictures have that power to share the moment and to convince that we can do better, or these are the moments that we have what we should have not done, and so I think we as photographers, underwater photographers, should not just take pretty pictures, but it's also important to take pictures that tell the plight of the oceans and what's happening out there.
Mm-hmm. Is there an art to taking those photos? Is there, like, because you said before, to put aside your emotions to take them, is there a certain kind of mindset you go into taking those photos with? Do you have a goal when you go and take those photos, or is it more if you're on a trip?
You want to tell the truth. You want to be as real as possible, and you want to emphasize that the story itself, and emphasize and bring up the emotions of that scene. So you need to get into the picture yourself. You have to shoot with your heart, basically, and tell the story with pictures. If it's not just no longer just a point and shoot thing. You have to get inside the situation and shoot how you want to convey the message with that picture.
Yeah. When you've taken these kinds of pictures before, do you go in with the purpose of taking that picture, or is it more like if you're on a dive or something, you see something happening, you go,
sometimes you just be confronted in the situation. But if, for example, you happen in the water and you come across ghost net or long liners, you happen to be there. But sometime, for example, years ago, I was shooting in Bali. I was shooting those illegal poacher of sea turtles. We know that's happening, and we sort of go in with the small hidden cameras and get ourselves into a situation to meet with the people that collect those turtles and bringing them back to Bali and sell them as sell the meats and shells. So you go in with a purpose, with single-minded purpose to get those pictures and to expose the trade. Those are situations that you have to go carefully because it's dangerous. Situation. Known people, activists that being in those situations whereby they got themselves hurt, injured, attacked, and it's how much how you be very clever and to go into this such a situation and prepare to run very quickly.
Okay. Do you think that like underwater photographers these days have a responsibility of some kind to take some of these photos to show people who haven't seen these impacts before what is happening underwater?
I think with the advent of digital cameras and GoPro especially, cameras are getting smaller and smaller, and even up to 10 cent coin size cameras. They can even shoot remotely. You put a camera there and you go outside and you shoot with your phone. You can activate the camera with your phone, so you can actually do a lot more work that way. Yes, I mean, but it's not for everybody. Don't put yourself in danger. The situation, consult the expert, get those people to do it, because it's not worth your life, your safety to do such thing, really.
Yeah.
You happen to be there, grab a picture quickly and get out quickly.
I know some of these photos, and these photos are beautiful and they're really emotional, but I know sometimes you can see these photos and feel kind of helpless because some of them are they're so gut-wrenching, these pictures, and they can make you feel like, oh, what can I do as an individual? Like, what advice would you give someone who has seen some of these pictures, for example, or of coral bleaching, of any of the things you mentioned before, and they're feeling a bit helpless? Like, what advice would you give those people?
Well, I think being helpless and not doing anything about it is the saddest thing you can do for not doing anything. Every one of us can do something. No one should be helpless, because if you confront images like this, you can do something about it. The way as I mentioned earlier, the way how you can talk about it, how you can change things for the better, and even having such pictures, you can share them, and someone together you can make the change. Helpless is not a word that again is not in my vocab. No, I don't believe anyone should be helpless, because you can do something to get up and do something about it. You should not be helpless. If you're helpless, give me a call and I'll tell you how not to be helpless.
There you go. For those listening, you can call Michael if you're not sure what to do. So I think you're right. Action is the antidote if you're feeling a bit helpless about what's going on.
Look into the mirror, like Sylvia said. Look into the mirror. What can I do?
Yeah,
look into the mirror.
Exactly. So with all of that about photography and taking photos, what do you see as the world is changing very quickly. Our marine ecosystems have a decade pretty much if we don't turn things around. What do you see as the future for someone who wants a career like yours, dive, travel, photography? What do you see as a future for those kinds of careers in the changing ocean?
Photography has been much easier than ever before. Cameras become more powerful, and also more affordable. So I think, first of all, get hold of a camera, get hold of your phone, and start shooting and start telling stories. Your future and your is where you is limited by your dreams. So keep the dreams and work on your dreams, and it will happen. So anybody can do anything. Anything is possible. So if you want to be a photojournalist, you want to be an author of books, you want to be on the front page of a newspaper, it's all possible. Everything is possible. You just have to work on it. and there's always future for a photographer, because you're storytellers. And there are a lot of stories out there that, there are 7 billion stories, put it this way. Every one of you have a story to tell. Go and tell your story, go and take your pictures and tell the story. So never ending. There's content, really like content. Ask Netflix, ask Disney Channel, ask the news channel. They need content. So you give your content and give it to them because they need it.
Mm-hmm. Make it climate content if you can.
Yeah, exactly. It's what is passionate to you,
Mm-hmm.
So climate, even your dog has a story to tell, man. Gonna talk to your dog. I mean, your dog doesn't know about climate change, you know. He see what's happening, it's getting hotter, you know. But your dog doesn't know, but you know, you know, you have to tell the story for your dog.
I love it. This is a personal question, but like from me, do you prefer photography or filmmaking, like documentary making? Do you find one's more
I'm a first a photographer, but
Mhm.
the medium that the Z generation understand is moving pictures. So we need to have to tell a story with video as well, with film as well, because then it's more emotion in that. But sometimes a still picture talks a lot more than the moving pictures, because you have the time to digest it, you have time to get into depth of the picture. So you need both. So I always have a video camera with me, or a device that can capture video and still at the same time. In fact, most camera these days can do both. Your phone do both. Your DSLR do both. You know, your GoPro does both anyway. And the main thing is, as a documentary photographer, is that how fast you can engage. You can grab it. You grab it with a picture first or grab it with a video first. It doesn't matter. Just grab the shots, whether it be video or still pictures. Grab the shot first. And some people say, if it doesn't have, you don't have the picture, it doesn't exist. It never happened. That's quite true.
Do you have a all-time favorite photo that you've taken?
Too many. Too many. So yeah, too many.
Yeah, I actually think my first ever underwater photo book was one of yours. I don't remember
Really? Which one is that?
but I think it was, yeah. I just saw the time. We might start wrapping up soon with some final questions. And we've gone over a lot of this already, but I like to kind of end these things talking about solutions and what everyone can do. So when it comes to climate change, what can we do about it? If you're to give your maybe 3 top tips to someone looking to help fight climate change, fight to protect the oceans right now.
Number one, you have to engage your families to choose the politician that represent you, because I believe we need a transformative change, and that comes top down. Your MPs, your ministers that represent the country, they can make the change. They must make the change. So don't be afraid to get rid of them and sack them. So vote for the right person to represent you, represent the country. As a person, as yourself, I think you can make choices that reduce your carbon footprint. And that is very easy to do. The food you eat, the way you travel, and that is something you can do yourself. And next is influence those people around you to do the same. Very simple. Everyone else can do it. It costs you nothing to do it.
Yeah, exactly. That is a perfect list. So vote, call your politicians, reduce your footprint, and influence those around you. I think that's a very simple list. I think anyone listening can definitely do that. Yes. You don't even have to leave your home to do most of them. Exactly. You can do them all from home.
Yeah, you can walk to the shopping center, walk there, and you can do walking down, from one station to another, walk there, just walk, and it's good for you. It's your own free weight loss program anyway.
We just had a question come in from the audience. It says it's not a strictly climate question, but Michael, how do you feel about photographers who move or displace marine life to get the perfect shot?
This is, be very careful about this, okay? Moving marine life to get a shot. I mean, if the animal is not supposed to be there, it's not supposed to be there. You should be moving them at all. You shouldn't be touching them at all. You shouldn't be moving them at all. But sometimes, if the situation say that if you're not harming, if you don't harm the animal, all right. I'm not saying we should do that, because I know photographers that have done it, and at the end of the day, is the story is a better story. So you weigh against that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but the power of that picture, because you have move that subject a little to get a stronger picture, but he or she has not harmed that animal against a better stories. So you weigh what is against that.
Yeah.
But generally, we should not be moving, because you want to shoot as it is, and that's the situation it is. So in this day, moving is a strict no. You don't have to. And there's another conversation going on right now. Is we actually happened last few days, a picture in our competition of a seahorse riding on a dive mask. So there were people complaining, say, "Oh, that picture is set up," But then my question is, can that happen in a naturally in environment? It happens. We've seen lots of plastics cotton bud in the water. I've seen seahorse ride on everything. Seahorse riding on another seahorse. Seahorse riding on grass, riding on a plastic bag. They ride on anything. So whether the picture, the photographer has set it up or not, we do not know. We like to give the photographer the benefits of doubt, because it can happen naturally. Then the question is the picture powerful, especially to the non-photographers, to the general public, to get a message through that you dispose your mask properly, or else you're putting that in an environment, and then animals get riding on it, and then turtles got to eat all those plastics that you discard in the oceans. That is just very strong. The narrative is very powerful. So whether the photographer has put a mask deliberately or not in the water, or whether you try putting a seahorse on a mask, it'll never happen. First of all, the seahorse has to be willing to ride them, to cling onto the mask, right? So there's the debate there, whether the story comes out of that picture, and who is looking at that picture to tell the stories.
Yeah.
So it's then which is your own conscience that whether to do or not to do.
Yeah, that's a really interesting discussion. So weighing up the power and the impact of the story and the photo versus how much harm is happening to the animal. I think that's definitely got a lot of different sides to it. But yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And I hope that answered whoever asked the question. I think we're almost time is up. Do you have any other final comments, Michael? Anything that we've discussed today?
Well, I think just get a camera and go out and start shooting.
There you go.
Start telling stories, and tell the truth, of course, because our picture must speak truth. I think that is my final words to lead to photographers, especially. Your picture must speak the truth.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I learned a lot. When I buy a GoPro, I'll send you my first photos.
If you want anything on GoPro, you buy the GoPro 8 or buy the GoPro 9. They're the best GoPro around.
Yeah, or I'll send you a video of me and my dog telling a story about climate change.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael. Bye. Have a good afternoon. Bye.